Hey, this episode is sponsored by the Black Detour. The Black Detour is an independent media outlet that advocates for Black people to not only be empowered, but informed on issues of the Black community. They are part of the growing movement in America to empower Black people all across the United States. You can visit their website at theblackdetour.com, and you can also follow them on Twitter at theblackdetour.com. Thanks so much, and let's get started. Hey y'all, we back and it's episode number 12 and I feel like I just dropped last week's episode yesterday, but it's been a week, so here we are again. And if you haven't checked out last week's, you can find the link to the SoundCloud one on my page, on both my personal and the podcast page, the_balance_pod, and that's both on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, you can always check it out on Google Play if you're rocking with an Android. And if you team iPhone, it's the Purple Podcast app on your phone. You can check it out there. Just search the Balance Podcast. You know my logo looks like. You'll be set. You'll be lit. Hit subscribe so that ass can get those notifications and get the videos or clips and just be able to listen. And again, thank you to everyone who supports me. There are some people who retweet and repost my things every week, and I truly appreciate it. And I don't think you guys get how grateful I am for it. Because again, this is my baby. This is my lifeline. I don't do this as a hobby because I'm not getting paid for it yet. I will be. Be on notice. That's gonna happen. I have to pay monthly to just keep producing this content and having somewhere to place it. So this has come out of pocket. I'm not getting anything for it at the moment. But this is just what I want to do, and it's me being me and finally utilizing my voice because I've been silenced for so long. So anyways, thank you to support me by listening, reposting, or whatever. Be sure to like, subscribe, tell your friends, all of that. Alright, so now we're about to go into celeb news for the week. So first things first, and no, not the realest, because I've been seeing that tweet pop up. There's so many other first things first. But anyways, so Offset was arrested on felony gun charges. He was pulled over after failing to maintain his lane. So I'm not gonna lie, the first thing that popped into my head was Cardi said she like niggas that been in and out of jail. And I mean, that's Offset. His lawyers are saying that he's being targeted. Very well could be because yes, he is famous. Yes, he is black and he's a rapper. And those are a combination that they can't stand. But also, Offset just has a record of doing stuff. And that whole accident that he had was real sketch a couple of months ago, whatever. There's just no details surrounding it. He just hopped out of the car. Someone helped him to his home. And there's no information on how the accident happened. It was all sketch. He was probably under the influence. That's why there's no report. That's why he didn't want anyone to take him to the hospital. All of that. So, he probably was failing to maintain his lane. And then, he's on probation or something like that. But he's not supposed to have guns, what have you. I'm not about to say, he's free now. But even when he wasn't, I saw people commenting on Cardi B's post saying free Offset. I'm not going to say that. If people are guilty for what they do and they do stupid shit, get in trouble for the stupid shit that you do. You know what I'm saying? I'm not about to just say free everybody when there's so many people out there who truly need to be free. And then, so moving on from that. So I don't even know which word to start, with Faith Evans. Should I start with the whole Stevie thing or the Biggie thing? I'm going to start with Biggie. So, Faith Evans did an interview and she admitted to eating Biggie's ass. And, my brain just, froze. I'm like, yo, why would you admit to that? That's something you take to your grave, sis. I would never go around telling people, yeah, I ate Biggie's ass. Biggie, I just do not feel like he properly sanitized back there. I do not feel like his hygiene was right back there. And, that's just a lot of ass crack to eat and lick and all of that. That's just no. So that's a decades long L that she could have kept to herself. Then on top of that, she just married Stevie J. And apparently it's legit because of the marriage licenses. But, granted, if they go into this for promotional purposes, they can always file for annulment because it's for fraud. If they want to go that route. And it could be because she has a new song out. And, of course, staying in the news, whether it's good or bad, can make you pop and get you attention that you want. So it could just very well be a publicity stunt. Although I do know that they were dating on and off for, a year or two. And then, of course, they go way back because he was cool with Biggie. And I think he produced music for Biggie. And of course, like, he has Biggie as his header, like a picture of him and Biggie as his Twitter header, and it's like so awkward now. And people have been, recycling tweets about it, but anyways, I just want Faith to just like sit back and like really reflect and reevaluate her life and her choices, because they ain't looking good right now. But yeah, so moving off of that, Michelle Williams from Destiny's Child, she checked into a mental health facility, and I applaud her because she's so brave just by being forthcoming and open about what she goes through because of the stigma that's attached, and just because the way people are nasty and slanderous, especially because she's Michelle. She gets slandered all types of ways for every single thing. And I mean, in the past, I was guilty of it too, but getting older now, I'm like, no, like, that's just not the wave. That's just not the move. So I just really applaud her, and I also applaud her for going to get help, because that's not an easy decision to do. And she took that step, and congratulations to her. And I just honestly hope that it helps her and that she heals. And it's not an easy process, and it's not just I'm checking myself into a mental health facility for a week and I'll be good. It's not going to work like that. But this is a great first step or second step or whatever it is. But it's amazing, and I'm really hoping that this helps her so much, and it helps her in her healing and recovery. And we're praying for you. So then moving on. So in the ESPYs, the Arthur Ashe Award was given to the victims of Larry Nassar's abuse. I'm not sure if I said his last name right, but he's an abuser, so it doesn't matter. If you're not familiar with the case, he was the doctor for like the gymnastics team, and he sexually abused, I don't know, over 100 young girls for years and got away with it. And the U.S. Gymnastics Board, or whoever committee, they were complicit in the scheme. So these girls coming forward and sharing their story, and because when you have been a victim of sexual abuse, assault, domestic violence, any of that, there's that shame, that's that self-doubt, or wondering if you did something wrong, and you're just scared, and a retaliation, just how people feel about it, and just it's also scary and hard to just admit and be open that this happened to you. So they're so brave for stepping forward to say their story, and they definitely deserve that award. Actually it's not last, because I have another thing to talk about, sub news, which is very unfortunate. I'm sure y'all know what it's going to be. But before that, so Sierra's song Level Up, like, I want to like it so bad. And I feel like it has potential in the sense that, like, it's one of those songs that'll grow on you. But the issue is this whole yummy in your tummy. Like, the chorus is really was just like, nah, sis, that ain't it. Like, but other than that, I feel like if you subtracted that out and put it in a new chorus, or if you had like Cardi B on the record, like for a verse, I feel like it could really pop, or it could at least be a song that grows on you. And like I said last week, it just kind of touches on that. Like I said, Sierra needs a better team of people behind her. Like, she can dance, and she has like a similar style of singing like Janet. And if she just had the right people, like the right producers, the right writers, like, she could really be popping. Like, she could be at a way higher level than she is. But I don't know. Hopefully do a remix with Cardi or somebody on it that can make it pop, because I'm really out here rooting for Sierra. But I want to go ahead real quick and say about Sierra, there's some songs that people slept on by her that they don't really know or talk about. And she had some good songs that were like low-key ones. Like, she has a song called Speechless. It's one of my favorites. And she also has a song called Sorry. And so if you haven't heard them, I suggest that you, like, when you got some chill time, just play them. They're like smooth R&B records, and you can identify with them. Like, they're relatable. But moving on to the unfortunate news, I believe it's everybody is aware of. So Demi Lovato OD'd, and she was taken to the hospital. But from my last reading of it, she was stable and awake and responsive, and that's what we're hoping for, and that's great. Addiction is no joke, and it's scary. And for those people out there who are being so hateful about it, no one willingly turns to drugs. There's always an underlying reason. A lot of people who suffer from substance abuse issues have internal issues, and I believe she suffered from an eating disorder as well. I think she had anorexia. So it's like they have these underlying issues, and it's their way to cope. And even those who start off doing drugs recreationally, there's just a reason behind that, because depending on how you were raised and your underlying personality, you're just not gonna get into certain shit and stick with certain shit. But there's something that keeps drawing them back besides the whole altering of the brain. But anyway, I just wish people in this world they were more sympathetic. And it's like, if that was someone in your family, like, how would you really feel about these hateful things being said? Like, no, I don't think people should go out and do drugs. Like, no, I don't. But it happens and it affects you, like, mentally. Like, it messes with your brain. It's altered. Like, they cannot help it. And I don't think people understand what that fight is like. And again, it's like for so many things in life, until you're in the shoes, you need to keep your mouth shut. Like, your 2 cents, like, what's that gonna buy, boo? Is that gonna buy me a house, a car? Like, that's not gonna help you pay your rent. That's not gonna help you do anything. So keep the 2 cents in your pocket and to yourself. And that's just how I feel about it. And then I've seen some people saying, like, oh, like, Lamar Odom, like, nobody cared if he lived or died, and it's called him a crackhead and all this and that and third. And other people, like, I don't know if they said something, but like Whitney, she's like labeled a crackhead, and I don't know, but like, I've seen those tweets circulating with X, Y, and Z inserted in it. And I totally get it, especially when you think about the demographic. Like, Demi Lovato is, I think she's white and possibly some kind of like Latina, I don't know. Possibly, I don't know. But I'm just going to go with her being white and her 1% black. But I get it, because of course, like, black people don't get that same treatment. Just like this whole, like, crisis for opioids that they're trying to cure now, like, that wasn't getting the attention. It was just when it was just the brown community suffering from it. So I wholly get where people are coming from it, but I also don't want it to make you less sympathetic or empathetic as a person. You should still be able to feel for them. If she's not out here on some Trump shit, and she's not on that level of bullshit, so she deserves sympathy and empathy. And I think that's kind of hard as a marginalized person when you see that your group is so uncared for and undervalued, that when you see other groups, like from predominant groups, how they're treated and uplifted and sympathetic and people care, you get a little salty, you get a little bitter, you get cynical, like all those things. And I just don't want it to rob us of our goodness and the love that God would want for us to have, and the sympathy towards people. But I get where they're coming from, but I just kind of wish, like, we wouldn't rock that way. But just on briefly just talking about addiction, so like someone tweeted on Twitter that if you think you don't know someone who does drugs, whether it's crack, heroin, meth, or whatever, like, you're wrong. And I mean, you can insert any drug in there, and I think it's very true. You don't know. And I think that it's important to realize that even if your friends don't tell you, you don't know what your friends are doing 100% of the time. Or not even your friends, maybe someone like an acquaintance, because you can't give everybody the friend label, but an acquaintance or someone that you knew kind of, sort of. Like, there is somebody that you've encountered in your life on more than a hey and bye basis that has done drugs. And the statistics shows that I think it's based on 2014, that over 21.5 million people suffer from a substance abuse issue. And again, it's often tied to mental health, and sometimes it's also tied to alcohol use, which is another coping mechanism. But anyway, I just want to real quick, before I go into all the things, I want to go ahead and give the number out before I forget, for the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration. So what they do, they're open 24 hours, 365, and they help people with substance abuse or mental health disorders. They give them referrals to local treatment facilities, like support groups and community-based groups and organizations. So I think they're doing really great work. And the number is 1-800-662-4357. Again, 1-800-662-4357. But getting back to it, just the gravity of addiction, like 100 people die every day. And to speak on it more about altering who you are in the brain and all this, that, and the third, what I was reading from my quick research before this episode was that 50% of the time it's inheritable. So it can be a genetic trait. And I think we see that. I mean, just when you think about Whitney Houston and you think about Bobby Christina, like the way she went out just like her mother, and the drug use, and I mean, down to the bathtub. Of course, she was beaten by Nick Gordon, allegedly. Well, actually, whatever. I'll use the term just to save my face from any possible lawsuits. But yeah, like, I truly believe that. And then, of course, the other 50% is like environmental factors, like who you keep around and stress level and all these different other things. But it's just important to keep all those things in mind. So, praying for her and her family, because I know just to get that call, and it's a scary thing. So just praying, and not just for her, but for all people out there suffering from addictions or just suffering. Because the thing is, and I know I tweeted last night, like, I can understand what it's like to, face that temptation and fight it because they're fighting it every second, every minute, every hour, day, whatever. But in a way I can, because I was just thinking, I was like, it's similar to depression. While, like, and I think I was at work, and I was just thinking, like, just some common ways. And in terms of things like that, depression, especially chronic, or, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia, or, you can name a host of them. You're fighting that illness every second, every hour, every day. And with the depression and other mental health disorders and illnesses, you're fighting sometimes to not be self-destructive. You're fighting to not harm yourself, physically or through substance abuse. And, just like them, they're fighting to not use substances. And I think even more just the fight in general, like, they're fighting to not give in, and we're fighting, mental health people to not give up. So there's just similarities there. And I just hope people find compassion, and not just for Demi, but also for Lamar Odom, because, who knows if he's still using, or other people who are suffering again. Like, have that in your heart. Like, if you claim to be about God, or even if you claim to be about spirituality, at the essence of all of that is love. Like, I'm going to talk a little bit about spirituality later, because I'm reading this book called The Complete Book of Healing by Tara Ward. And, part of it is universal love. And so if you're on any of those spectrums, you need to have that sense of love. You need to have that sense of compassion in you. And that's also godly. So, hey, if you believe, then you need to have that in you. You need to have, or strive to it, rather. But yeah, so that just wraps up the celeb news section. And then I kind of briefly, and I mean briefly because I don't want to go into a super long episode or a super long discussion on this, because I just don't have it in me today. So I want to talk about colorism a little bit. And so, yes, colorism does exist in the Black community and is very prominent. When dark-skinned girls are being called roaches, this, that, and third, or when it comes to quote-unquote preferences, and I use those in quotations. And yes, of course, that applies to, Black men saying they don't want Black women in general, and they want, like a Latina or a white girl or whatever. But again, it comes down even to preferences. Yeah, like, you might tend to go towards lighter skinned women, or, what have you. But if you find the other just disgusting, unappealing, and ugly, and you just won't even, like, that's when it comes into self-hate, and that's when colorism comes into form. So anyway, yeah, it's real. And I think I talked about it in a few episodes back when someone asked me if racism didn't exist or something like that, like, how would the Black community be? And I said we would still have the problem with colorism. And it's also because people don't want to acknowledge it. The colorism and racism are intertwined, and I'll get into that a little bit, because with racism, especially because it's covert and not overt, even though it can be, a lot of times it operates on a systematic and covert level. And same thing sort of for colorism. And so just like white people don't want to acknowledge the forms and the way that racism works, light-skinned people don't want to acknowledge the way that colorism works and their privileges, because guess what? Even though you're Black, you're lighter skin, aka closer to whiteness, so you get privilege. And I'm not going to go into the whole field nigga and house nigga shit, but I'm talking about in real life. Like, lighter skinned women are more likely to get, or men, higher positions, higher salaries. You're more likely to be seen as marriage quality. So and that's just some basic level stuff. There's so many other things that privilege holds, because again, the lighter you are, the closer you are to whiteness, and whiteness is just viewed as this amazing thing for whatever reason. So you need to acknowledge it's real, because a lot of people out there, especially light-skinned people, don't want to acknowledge it, and it's important. And again, like, tying into racism, just like there's white privilege, there's light-skin privilege. And it's also real just in the fact that we have those stupid, like, hashtag light-skin Twitter, or hashtag brown-skin Twitter, hashtag the hashtag dark skin Twitter. Like, that's not necessary, and that's just divisive. And again, I think that's gonna hold the black community back until we sit down and really talk about it. And I mean really talk. Like, the talks we want to have with white people and understanding that we want them to get, that needs to happen within our own communities about colorism. And just like with any isms, there's an oppressor and there's an oppressee, or the oppressed. And you know, it's happened to me. Like, that's my story. Like, and I'll get into it briefly a little bit later, but just like white people oppress like brown and black communities, like, there's that element sort of in there. Of course, it's not directly like that, but there's that sort of element to it with light-skinned people and dark-skinned people. Light-skinned people, like, if you had to define it in those terms for like the metaphor and the analogy to click, then yes, they would be like the oppressor. But how do I explain this? So, like, think about the the Dark Girls documentary that aired on Oprah's channel, I believe, or some channel years ago. And when you hear the stories about how those women were made to feel, and you can still see the pain and the hurt in their eyes and their tone, and they're crying, and they're grown adults. I'm talking 30s to 40s and 50s they were in the documentary, and the things that they went through and how they were treated. Like, again, there is that element there. And, you know, I'll go into a little bit of my story like I said I was going to do. So with the Dark Girls documentary, I remember I cried watching it, and it hit me so much because when I was younger, I was teased and I was bullied and I was made to feel disgusting because of my skin tone. And like the girl said, like, she would get bleached. I never went that far because, like, you know, I didn't get the bleach, but I did go as far as other people. Like, I would be in the shower and I would be scrubbing my skin so hard because I just wanted this darkness to go away. And I don't think I'm super dark skinned. I don't think I'm the darkest person in the world, but they made me feel that way. And I would just scrub so hard and just pray that some of this darkness will get off of me and I can be lighter, and then maybe they'll treat me better. Because, like, I mean, like, when we had to go to the gym in the mornings, they would be sitting so far back, like, from, like, we had to go wait if we got there early and wait for, like, the teachers to get there and go to our homeroom, I guess you call it in elementary school. I don't remember, so long ago. And so we had to sit in rows based on our teacher, and it would be like enough space between me and them that 6 other people could fit. But I knew my place because they put me in my place through the bullying and the harassment based on my skin tone, that I could not dare come close to them. I had to leave that amount of space. And we would sit in class and they would put up books or folders so they didn't have to look at me. Like, they just made me feel so disgusting. And when I tell you that maybe up until 2 years ago, I'm just now learning to love my skin, because it was just so ingrained in me to hate dark skin, to see it as ugly and unattractive and disgusting and something to be ashamed of, when it's nothing to be ashamed of. So I think we just need, as a black community, to really have the tough talks. What are the privileges of it? And I will say, like, you know, they're dark skinned girls, like, yeah, they might have been hostile towards, you know, lighter skinned women, because there's a part of me that still, and I'm working on it, and I'm going to be honest, that has resentment. And especially because a lot of my partners, when they were done with me, they always went on to lighter skinned counterparts. And so that still, like, hits me and hurts me to this day, because it's like, well, damn, like, am I still, like, my skin, maybe I was wrong for starting to love it, you know, like, because that just always happened. And so, like, yeah, there's times, because, like, you know, I have, like, that resentment or whatever. And so, yeah, they might have gotten, I'll say maybe dark-skinned girls were mean to them because of their skin tone, but it's just so totally opposite and different from what dark-skinned girls go through. And, like, when the Light Girls documentary came out, and when people who are light try to speak on their experiences, they sound much like white people trying to say the whole reverse racism thing. Like, when white people are saying, well, you know, you say this statement, but if I said it, it'd be racist, or, like, whatever, just all the different things that white people say and try to label reverse racism. That's what the colorism argument looks like, when light-skinned people just want to clap back and not listen and not get it. And we have to work through it. And we have to work through self-hate, because some of it was taught, but also just in other places, it just kind of stemmed and originated there. And so we just have to figure out the roots and remedy it. But I'll just leave that alone because I don't want to go into that talk forever. And I'm sure some people will be pissed off by what I'm saying, but I'm not here to please anyone with what I say. I'm here to speak my mind, and that's it. So tonight, Beyonce and Jay have their first show for On the Run in the U.S. And, like, I'm waiting and watching because I want to see what this set list gonna look like. So I was bored, and I literally came up with a draft set list of what I would love. And I just thought, like, maybe, and this is like some wild, wild shit that would never happen. But my ideal On the Run concert, this is what it would look like. So let me tell you how wild it is, because she would break out LaToya and Latavia. Yeah, that wild. So I would first like them to open up with No, 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 a part 1 and 2 mashup. And I just feel like that could be so major. And she could do that at the Houston show. They love it. The Atlanta shows, the LA shows. And they would just feel that shit. And the crowd would go wild. And then do Jumpin' Jumpin'. And then they could do Bootylicious. And I would want fresh, up-to-date choreography. And then I would love for them to do Lose My Breath and have a mix of the old and new choreography, and kind of have it like the video and other performances they did during that era where it was like a mini dance battle, because I feel like that shit would be dope. And then I would like for them to do Through With Love, because I feel like that song really let Michelle shine, and that's such an amazing song off their last album, Destiny Fulfilled. And if you don't know it, you sleep. And Michelle, first of all, had the best verses of that whole album, and she really killed it on that that song. And she also, when they performed it live somewhere, she had the best. Like, she outsang Beyonce on that, and I'm a huge B stan, and I will say that with my whole heart. Like, she outsang her with her verse on Through With Love. And I think because Michelle's verse was about God, and she's a godly woman, so, like, that was her. So then, like, I would have, like, them end up, like, the last song they would do together, the DC, would be Soldier. And then when it came to Beyonce's part, which like the Boys Up Top for the BK, she could throw up the rock and then mash it up with like a Jay-Z song. And I thought that would be dope. And then from there, B and J could do '03 Bonnie and Clyde together. And then I would like for them to do Hard Knock Life, Jay, so my queen can get a break. He can do Dirt Off Your Shoulder, then 99 Problems. And then B can come back out for them to do Holy Grail together. Then they can do part 2 On the Run. Then Drunk in Love. And then Blow, because she keeps sleeping on that. Like, I want to see Blow perform. And then like some kind of interlude. She always does those. Then I like to see her talk shit mode. So I would love to see Top Off, her verse, and Jay's, of course. And then I like to see them do Ape Shit. And then I like to see them do 713. And then Jay could do Click, and then she could get a little break and then come back out to Mesh and mash up Diva and Click. And they do that already, so they could just kind of keep that going because I think it's cool. And then she can get a little break, and then he can come out and do Run This Town and Big Pimpin'. Then she can come back out and do Don't Hurt Yourself, Sorry. And then again, 6 Inch, because sis, like, I want that. Like, you be playing. I want to see it. And then a interlude, and then she could do Resentment, I Care, and then Jay could come out and do Song Cry. And when I'm doing this order, I'm just really thinking about, like, eras. Like, the first part was, like, all DC, and then the other one was, like, a mixture of some of their songs together. And then it kind of drifted into the whole talk shit and the new album stuff. And then as you can see, then it kind of just meshed it into, like, the theme. Like, he talking Big Pimpin', she's like, Don't Hurt Yourself, Sorry, 6 Inch, like, her Lemonade-ish. And then it eases into Resentment, then I Care, and then Song Cry, that kind of in your feeling shit. And then I would like for them to do Upgrade You, and then The Story of OJ. And then after that, I would like Jay to go away from Ben, and she can do Freedom, and then come back and do Family Feud, Formation, and then Jay can do Public Service Announcement. And then I would like for them to do another interlude. And then it could be Nice, then Boss, then Friends, then Black Effect, because I want more, the album. Then another interlude, and then I like for her to do Countdown, Summer, and then Young Forever. And that's my set list, an ideal world for On the Run. So I know it's wild because it's never going to happen because it's Beyonce. And she's never going to bring them girls on stage like Latoya and Latavia. And then it's on the run, so she's going to focus on her and Jay. But anyway, so the last topic of today's episode is the chakras or spirituality, and then I'll get into chakras. So I had my friend Jasmine come on, and she did a really amazing job of speaking on spirituality, and I just kind of wanted to touch on some of the things she mentioned and a little bit of other things. And I just want to say, like, she is my spiritual inspiration. She's what helped put me on the spiritual path, and so I really appreciate her taking the time out that she did to speak. But yeah, so I think it's really important to have like a general understanding of the chakras and like where they're at, things like that. So we'll start with the first chakra, which is your base chakra. And it has one opening and it's towards the ground and it's located at the base of your spine. And so it's very focused on the physical and earthly part of you and who you are. And I call it the root chakra, and that's what it's more commonly called when I look up things and when I'm doing my research. But yeah, it really focuses on whether or not you're grounded. And then there's the navel chakra, which is called the sacral chakra, which is what I call it. And most people do, but in this book, they call it the navel one. So it has two openings, front and back, and it's located just below your navel. And this one's all about your emotions, your sensuality, and your sexuality, and how you enjoy sharing sexual intimacy. And then there's the solar plexus, and that's to the left of your rib cage. And again, it has two openings, front and back. And that's really where your mental capacities are and your sense of how you belong in the world are and how you're connected. So this is kind of like your mental space, but it's also connected to your emotions. And then you have the heart chakra, two spaces, opens front and back. And of course, it's located at the heart itself. And so this is where your vibrational frequencies and the energy that you feel start to change. It's kind of like the middle ground. It's like a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. So this is about love. And it's about your interpretation of love and how we relate lovingly in our relationship with others. And that includes everybody, everything from families and friends to fellow human beings and creatures on earth. And then your throat chakra, that's of course located at your throat, and it has two openings, front and back. And it's about taking responsibility for everything in your life and behaving truthfully with everyone by speaking that higher spiritual truth and living by it. It's about being yourself, opening your mouth and being true to yourself, saying what's valid to you and living your life authentically by you, who you are as a person. So this is a finer and higher vibration than the others mentioned below. So you're kind of going to a higher vibration now. And then you have the brow chakra, which is the third eye chakra, which is what it's mostly called by me and others. And so, it's your ability to see things that normal people cannot. And then, of course, it kind of focuses on being so connected and understanding and seeing beyond the surface. And it's also about loving universally. And you have the crown chakra, which is the last one, which is located above your head. It only has one opening, which is upwards. And it's the highest vibrational frequency of all of the chakras. And it deals with the highest of spiritual relationships, like your relationship with the divine, like God, Buddha, Allah, whatever you roll with. And so thinking about your chakras, like, if you enjoy physical day-to-day life, if you have a strong will to live and you feel well grounded in the present and you're appreciating strong physical energy and vitality, then, your root is lit. Like, your root chakra is lit. Because if it's blocked, then you'll notice that those things aren't working well. Like, you don't feel grounded. You don't have that strong physical energy and vitality. You don't have that strong will to live. And then for your navel chakra, for this one, it's like, if you enjoy relating to people and you have a fulfilling sexual relationship and you appreciate your sensuality and you're aware of your sexual strength and your drive and you enjoy his presence, then yeah, like that chakra is lit. There's no blockages. But if you find those things aren't real, then there's some blockages. And then if you have a strong capacity for loving others and you're not judgmental or discriminatory in that expression, and you feel connected with unconditional love to everyone and everything, then, that heart chakra is lit. Um, and then if you have a great sense of belonging and you have an expressive emotional life, which creates mental satisfaction and fulfillment rather than worry, which is hey, this one is not it for me. Like, y'all know I have anxiety. So, like, that one's always messed up for me. But if that's, together, then your solar plexus is good. If it's not, then you're going to have blockages and you're going to find those issues. And then if you reach a stage in life where your spiritual concepts are just being fully formulated and you can see the universal truth, like, and you can understand where you fit into the plan and where you fit into the world and the universe, and you just carry that out and live that out fully, then your third eye is lit. And then, last but not least, like, if your earthly self has fused with your spiritual knowledge and you just have this feeling of bliss that's typically unknown to most, and you just know the divine law and you have that connection with the divine, then your crown chakra is lit. So yeah, like, those are just a couple of things that I just wanted to note on about spirituality, because I just felt like, it's just kind of important. And then aside from chakras, I can't express how important the breath is. Breathing, especially when even if you're depressed, depression and anxiety, breathing is what helps me regain focus and calm down and be able to keep functioning day to day. And it helps me in the, like, hardest of moments. And so there's this quote that I found in the book that I really love, and I wanted to share to kind of speak to the importance of the breath. Life is in the breath. Therefore, he who only half breathes, half lives. And the fact about the half breathing is the fact that we don't use our full lung capacity. Most of us only shallow breathe. And so we have like 500 million tiny sacs in each lung. And so they're called like the alveoli or something like that. And so when we breathe deeply into our full capacity, all of these sacs are inflated, but we don't do that. In fact, like, most people use less than a third of their lung capacity throughout their entire life. And so, of course, like, these sacs lose their elasticity and they don't work properly. But moving away from that, breathing helps you become centered. It helps you become grounded. It helps you just be. And I also found something really interesting in there. It's like, when you're, of course, at first when you're trying to relax and meditate or just breathe and be still, of course, like, your mind, like, it's just gonna, like, sometimes you can't shut it off, or you think you can't shut it off, and you think you can't, and then sometimes your mind just starts thinking thoughts just because you're trying not to think thoughts. And they note in here, like, your mind has created them, so that means you can erase them. And I just thought that was so dope, but also so real at the same time. And it's true. And so if you're ever, like, struggling, and they say take 10 minutes. So I would say take 10 minutes in the morning or before you go to bed, or whenever you're struggling, if you're alone and have space to yourself. And just focus on your breathing and listening to the rhythm and listening to your breath go in and out, and just how it fills you, how it fills your lungs, how it fills your trachea, how it feels like your stomach and your lower abdomen. Like, just listen to all of those things. And if your mind keeps going, just what they recommend is just saying in and out, like every breathe in and every breathe out, to just refocus your mind. And I really think it'll help you get your thoughts together, especially when you're trying to meditate. But yeah, I think that'll be about it for this episode. And I think maybe next week I'll go more into detail about, spirituality, a little bit more about the importance of breathing, because I just kind of barely touched on it because I'm trying to be mindful of things. Mindfulness, I might touch on that too. But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. Be sure to retweet, repost, or whatever avenues. Like it, subscribe if you're listening via the podcast on iTunes. Or I don't know if you can do it on the Google Play because I don't have an Android. But if you're listening to the podcast section on there, if you can subscribe, do it. If you're listening still via the SoundCloud links, shout out to you. I love you. And you can subscribe on there. And then just be sure to tell your friends, just tell everybody, just gas me up, people. But no, thank you guys so much, and we'll be back next week.